What's going on, guys? Welcome to the March edition of the monthly check-in. And today I'm going to be doing a pretty thorough recap of my experience at the NAMM Show back in January. I had the opportunity to go out to Anaheim, California and visit the NAMM Show for the first time. So I'm going to be kind of going into my experience, the things I liked about it, the things I didn't quite like about it, and a little bit of everything in between. But first, as always, I got to get into my 3 monthly picks. 3 songs I think you guys should be giving a listen to for the month of March. First up is a song by an artist I actually just recently discovered through his collaboration with Dante Thomas. It was a song called Moxie, and Dante Thomas is someone I've been following a lot. And so when he posted about this song that he was featured on, I went ahead and checked it out. It's by an artist named The Last Maven, who is from Chicago. I actually ended up finding out that he's been doing his thing for well over 10 years. I think the earliest project I came across on Apple Music was from 2013. So as always, as I always do with, different artists that I discover, I kind of dug into the back catalog and checked out, what has he been doing? What does it sound like? Because I really enjoyed Moxie as a cut. I think this one came out in December. So as I went back, I discovered a lot more of his music and really love his lyrical ability. It's right up my alley, and I like how he has kind of a mix of storytelling and a little bit of braggadocio as well. It's not all one style. I think he is someone that has a lot of versatility from what I can tell, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does moving forward. It looks like in 2025 he put out not only this song, but a handful of other singles. He had one with Mick Jenkins that I really enjoyed. And it looks like he's just putting in a lot of work. He might be one of those artists that drops every month or every few months, which I really enjoy. I like people that are relatively consistent with the releases. And like I said, because I have resonated with what I've heard so far, there's a great chance I'm going to be continuing to go back on more past material, but looking forward to the new stuff that he has coming out. So again, the artist's name is The Last Maven from Chicago. Really awesome artist, and shout out to Dante Thomas for kind of indirectly putting me on to his music, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does moving forward. So check this one out. It's called Moxie, Dante Thomas, The Last Maven, on all platforms. Next up, we have an artist I've been following well over 10 years, singer-songwriter PJ, who I think I've highlighted on this segment before, but PJ doesn't drop a lot of solo released music. I think in the last 12 years, she has only dropped 3 or 4 projects total, a couple EPs, and her album Rare that came out 10 years ago, which I've always marked as a very influential album on me, and it came out around the time when I started making music. Incredible body of work, but when she does drop, it's always very high quality material. So she actually released another EP in late January, early February, somewhere in there. It's called Why Do Feelings Matter Anyway? And it was comprised of a few singles she had released before the EP dropped over the last few months, and a couple new songs as well. The song I like the most is the intro called Go Time. Very motivational type music. I think PJ is great at, again, just like I said about The Last Maven, versatility. She can make very heartfelt stuff. She can make very motivational stuff, and kind of a mix of the in-between both of those as well, which I think is awesome. And the fact that she writes and records and does vocals on a lot of other people's projects, I think that has always made her someone that has put in so much work and knows how to craft amazing material. That's why I wish she would drop more of her own music. But like I said, it is a gift to get anything from her. So I would definitely recommend checking out this EP. It fits exactly in the wheelhouse of her past projects and what you would expect from her to release in general. And I would definitely also recommend checking out her other work. Like I said, Rare is one of my favorite albums. It came out in 2016. But I just hope, I've hoped this for years, but I hope that she eventually gets more consistent with releasing as an artist. And I think a big part of why she hasn't over the years is she was signed to a big record label for many years that kind of shelved all of her solo stuff. But now that she's independent, I would really love to see her put out more material just like this. So shout out to PJ, and this one is called Go Time. The EP, Why Do Feelings Matter Anyway, on all platforms. Definitely give that one a listen. And lastly, this month, I want to highlight amazing instrumentalist, producer, singer, songwriter, does everything, Terrace Martin. Obviously, I've highlighted Terrace many, many times on this segment, and Terrace is in the midst right now of dropping a lot of new music. A few different projects. The first one he put out in late January was called Passion. And I personally like the song Chlorophyll, the beat, I should say, Chlorophyll the most. It's got a lot of experimentation with the Lindrum, which for those that don't know, the Lindrum is essentially where a lot of samples come from, you know, in hip hop. That was kind of the creation of that when the Lindrum was introduced back in the 1980s, late 70s, early 80s, somewhere in there. But, you know, people would sample those drums, and a lot of those drums are still used today. And this instrumental Chlorophyll is a great example of the drums from that are very reminiscent of the Lindrum. And I actually watched the interview that Terrace did with DJ Head, talking about all of the projects he's putting out and how each one was kind of a ode to different styles of music. And I really like this project because it's mostly instrumentals. I think there's one song that has Blast, the singer Blast, on a feature. But for the most part, this is a combination of more drum tracks. Some saxophone obviously worked in because obviously Terrace is one of the best saxophone players out there. And just a mix of different styles. I think it's 12 tracks overall, but it's highlighting the feeling of passion, you know, and what that gives. And he has another project called Peace that came out soon after that that's all piano based. And I think there's supposed to be a couple more projects as well that kind of all tie together, but they're broken up into different albums. So obviously, if you know Terrace Martin, the quality is always there, the consistency is always there, and someone who I just think is one of the best musicians we've ever seen, just in any genre, can do so much. Every artist he works with, he elevates, and nothing but good things to say. So definitely check out the full Passion project by Terrace Martin. And be on the lookout for those other ones coming real soon. All right, so let's get into my kind of recap. I did a workshop soon after I got back from this trip about NAMM, and I kind of talked about my distinct or instinctual reaction to it having just came off the trip. So now that it's been about a month and change, I can thoroughly kind of sit down here and make something a little more in depth for you guys, talking about my experience at the NAMM Show. And for those that don't know, NAMM is essentially an organization. It stands for National Association of Music Merchants. And they do a lot of different work with organizations like schools and different music programs throughout the country. They might be global, I think they are. But I know in the United States, they work a lot with funding schools so that kids can get access to musical instruments to fund, you know, music programs, keep music in schools. Because there was a big point, this was even when I was in school, where a lot of states were coming in and cutting band programs, cutting choir, cutting a lot of art programs in general. And so NAMM is one of those organizations responsible for helping keep music involved in these kids' lives, which is super amazing. Well, anyway, they hold this show called the NAMM Show every single year in Anaheim, California. It's at the Anaheim Convention Center, and it's usually every January. There was one year, like 5 years ago, where they had it in the spring, and I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, next year, if it's in the spring, I should totally go, because usually when I'm trying to travel in Ohio or from Ohio, I have to deal with a lot of weather issues, and this year was no different. I actually missed one of the biggest blizzards we've seen in, 100 years by about a week. Not even that. I think I missed it by a couple days when I came back from this trip, which is wild. So, I usually look at that and I'm like, I would love to do this trip in the spring. Well, unfortunately for me, they did not move this back to the spring the following year and every year since, and that is because of COVID. So COVID is basically the main reason why it was moved in the first place, but they ended up moving it back to January. I say all that to say I had wanted to go to this event for several years now. So I made the decision in late summer, probably in August last year, that I was going to do it. I went to the website, got registered. Registration process is fairly easy. You basically just go in and you have to fill out obviously your name and who you are essentially. For me, I put that I was a music producer. Apparently you could put your performance rights organization, which I didn't do because I didn't see that. So I saw a lot of people walking around with badges that had their ASCAP info, which I could have done. I guess I just missed where I needed to put that information in at. But you basically fill out all of your information and put into registration. The fee for your badge itself is $150, which to me is very reasonable because of what you get out of that $150, which I'll get to in a minute here. So this event is a 5-day event. The first 2 days are pretty much dedicated to the exhibitors, people that are going to sell products. So this is all your big companies like Yamaha, JBL, PreSonus, all these different people that would go to NAMM, that would be at NAMM, that actually have booths at the show floor itself. It's dedicated to those people, and there's a lot of business meetings going on and conferences going on those first 2 days. So it's not open to everybody. So I ended up going to Thursday and Friday. I could have went to Saturday. I chose not to, mostly because of the weather and trying to get back home. But Thursday and Friday. So Thursday I'm with my brother, by the way. My brother went with me on this trip. We did some other things on this trip, which was really cool. Went to Disney, did a few other awesome things. This was kind of like the end of the trip doing this part of it. So we went, will call for badge pickup is pretty relatively simple. You go basically underneath to the basement of the convention center. All you do is go up to one of the booths. They have probably like 20 booths set up. You show your QR code that you got sent for the registration, and then they print your badge right on the spot. So then you just go over to a little booth that has the lanyards, and you just attach your badge to the lanyard, and that's it. So you're able to use that badge for the entire week, which is relatively, or I shouldn't even say relatively, it's very convenient, honestly, because it means that you can pretty much roam to all the different spots, being able to kind of get in. Now, they do check your badge. So like, trying to describe the layout of this is kind of interesting. The main convention center itself has the show floor. It also has the entire upstairs that has a lot of different private events going on. The badge itself gets you into almost everything. I found there was a lot of private events and things that you couldn't get into that were kind of upcharged, or things you had to add on, which I didn't do. I didn't want to do this time, mostly because I just wanted to have the first experience and just kind of check things out. But as you go to different parts outside, such as the food trucks, the main stage, which is where they have some concerts going on, or the hotels across the street. So they utilize one of the hotels, the Hilton, a couple floors of that. They utilize that, and I'll get to that in a second as well. But as you go to these different parts, they'll check your badge just to make sure that you're actually supposed to be there. But that's it. I never got questioned about anything. No one gave me any slack for anything, trying to go to different places. But again, there are events that you can't get into with just a normal badge. So Thursday, the big thing that I ended up doing was going to the Hilton to see Hit Boy speak. Obviously, Hit Boy, one of my favorite producers ever, someone I've been listening to for many years. And I actually found out that he had it was like a Tech Tracks Summit. There was a little speaking conference. So we went in there, got front row, even though we were kind of far away. We were like on the opposite side of the stage, but it was basically just a panel where they asked him a lot of questions about, his career, his music, what's coming out soon, that sort of thing. I didn't ask any questions at that one, but it was definitely a very cool experience and very cool to see and hear somebody in person that I have been looking up to for many years. And I'm pretty sure I've seen every Hit Boy interview there is. So a lot of the stuff I was like, yeah, I know this, but it's just cool to like be here and be in the midst of someone like that. So that was awesome. And then for the rest of the day, we pretty much just walked the show floor, checked out everything. And it takes you a while to walk that main show floor. We tend to start at one end and worked our way to another end. And we did it a few times throughout the couple days we were there. Time kind of flies because you'll be just browsing around And by the time you get from one end to the other, you know, an hour and a half has passed and you're like, how did that happen? But it shows like the magnitude of how big the event actually is. So the main show floor is really amazing. I mean, there's, like I said, all kinds of companies there and just all kinds of people there, thousands of people. Thursday was a lot less crowded than Friday. Friday was immensely crowded. And I feel like that's because a lot of people were doing performances at certain booths. So Friday especially, I noticed that a lot of the booths had different acts performing at them. So companies would go in, and it's usually probably sponsored artists that would come in and perform like sets throughout the day. So it's interesting because you'd be walking and you'd see a jazz set going on over here at like the saxophone booth. And then over here you got a pop act doing like a cover of so-and-so. And it's like, this is wild. There's just people all over the place, musicians all over the place. And another thing is a lot of people demoing gear, which obviously you got musicians there. You're going to be seeing a lot of people demoing. And believe it or not, things don't clash as much as you think that they would with all that stuff going on. But the craziest section to me is where the drums were. Like, there's a section with primarily rock instruments. And man, the drum kits, there's drummers just going crazy. So it's like, yeah, I probably wouldn't want to be hanging around the drum booth all day. You might get a pretty bad headache from that. But for the most part, it doesn't really clash too much, even though everything's kind of in an open space. But they have it separated into genres for the most part and into sectors where it's like there's live entertainment gear, there's DJ and DAW and digital audio production sections. And then there's, like I said, rock, jazz, classical, all kind of separated in their own little homes throughout the main show floor, which I also think is convenient because if you're only there for one thing, you can kind of just hang around that section and just check it out and try to network with people and all that stuff. The other big event I went to was on Friday, and that was not at the main show floor. It was actually at, it was in the convention center, but it was another part of the building where they had a booth from Mix with the Masters, who does a lot of amazing tutorials online, teaching people how to mix and master their music. And they had Dahi there, who is another producer that I've been a big fan of for years, another great influence on me and my style and all that stuff. So I got to go to the Q&A with Dahi, and that was a much more intimate setting. It was on a show floor, so there's a lot of people walking around and stuff, but the actual setting itself was much more intimate. And what he did for his panel, because they had a lot of different speakers that day, so that day alone they had probably 5 different people come and speak. He was like the second or third person of the day, but what he did for his was he broke down the intro to Kendrick Lamar's GNX, which he co-produced. So he showed the whole session to everybody on a big screen. We could see the stems, we could see the vocals, everything, every part of this beat, we could see it, which I thought was fascinating. And he works, I believe, in Pro Tools. So it was a big Pro Tools session, and we got to hear the song, and then he basically gave us the story and kind of the thought process of what went into it. I actually got to ask a question at this one, and I believe I asked him about his upcoming solo album and how that has been different from working with artists like Kendrick. He's worked with Big Sean, Lupe Fiasco, Wale, Tyler the Creator. Like, he's worked with so many different people. So I asked him about that, and that was really cool. Again, 10 years ago, if you told me I was gonna ever be able to do something like that, I would have been like, that's wild. That's pretty crazy. So awesome experience. Shout out to Mix with the Masters for holding that, and I actually followed their page now because of that, because I'm like, this was a really cool experience. And that was pretty much it for like the events that I went to. There were so many events though, and there's things going on that you might not even know about until you're like there and you're like, wow, I didn't know this was going on, but this is pretty crazy. So let's get into the what did I like, what did I not like portion. Again, $150 for what you get for the event, to me, is amazing. The big thing is food costs. We ate at a food truck, which was actually they had a lot of local LA food trucks come in. and we dropped a lot of money. It was like 30 or 40 for like each of us to have. I think we had like orange chicken and rice or something. It was good food, but it's very pricey. It's California prices, but it's also event prices. So, you know, your badge doesn't get you any food, so you got to kind of factor in food costs. And if you're going to get any gear or anything, I didn't buy anything at this event. I was just there for the experience. But to me, 150 bucks for what you get out of it is absolutely worth it. Like I said, I got to see two of my all-time favorite producers speak right in front of me. Like, for 150 bucks, that's insane. Not to mention I got to see the entire show floor, see different concerts and events going on around me, and you have access to network with all those people, which is also very cool. The things I didn't like are pretty minor. I'm not a huge crowds person, so Friday especially, because it was more busy, was very overwhelming for me personally. It was kind of like sardines in a can at some points, and I was like, I don't like this too much, but it is what it is. And I think it's enjoyable enough where it's not that big of a deal. And, you know, to be able to have access to all those people and all those companies, to me, it's worth it. I could put my anxiety on the back burner for a minute. The other thing I wasn't super big on was certain people's way of networking, which that's probably just a personal gripe of mine. People that kind of just were networking with anyone they came across for no reason. It was like people that had nothing to do with why they were trying to network with them, and they were just trying to like pitch them something. So I saw that going on a lot. But again, I'm not knocking anybody's hustle. I'm not knocking anybody's way of doing it. That's just not like how I would approach things. So that was really like a personal thing for me. But you see that all over the place. I mean, you see that in any industry, any big event, you're gonna see that. So, you know, just that sort of thing, very minor. I wouldn't say that's a reason to not go. I think if you have a reason to go, me this time, I just wanted to experience it. I really did, because it had been on like my bucket list to say, let me go and actually get to see how this is and see if I want to go back in the future. And I didn't even get to really network with anybody. I found out that there was a few people that I knew personally that had been there, and we never ran into each other. Hopefully, if I go back again, I can run into people that I actually know and hopefully network with some more people. But overall, the value of this event is amazing. You know, I would recommend it. I will try to leave the website in the description of this video so you guys can go register for next year. And I think next year is still in January. It's the end of January this time. I think it's like the last week of the month. Not sure why that is, but the dates are a little different than they were this year. So I will try to leave that in the description of the video so you guys can check it out. But overall, my NAMM Show experience, very cool. I'm very glad I got to do it. Hopefully I can go back again soon. And shout out to NAMM for putting on such an amazing event that everybody can go out and experience. This was a relatively long one, so I do apologize. I don't want to get into a ton of like what's planned, what's the next type of thing. But I just want to thank you guys for checking out this video. If you've been to NAMM, let me know how your experience went. And if you're planning to go, let me know, because I would love to link up hopefully next year or in the coming years if I go back as well. But thank you guys as always again for tuning in to this month's edition of the Monthly Check-In, and we'll see you in April with another one. Take care, guys.